Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Guler-Loeb.
Hey everybody. I am so delighted to introduce you today to my guests. I have two guests today, Jen Guillemin and Wendy Swart Grossman. Wendy and Jen are the co-owners of Creative Reframe. They believe that imagination, creativity, and empathy are critical for healthy societies and for future businesses. They envision a world where business and art join forces to generate economic, social, and cultural value while promoting a triple bottom line: people, planet, and profit. Jen Guillemin, with a background in arts leadership, counseling, and teaching, is an arts advocate and creative problem solver. She has mentored thousands of student artists and has spearheaded many arts initiatives at the Boston University College of Fine Arts. She served as inaugural director of Arts Leadership and Innovation, interim director of the BU School of Visual Arts, and as founding director of the BU Visual Arts Summer Institute. Jen has expertise in higher education administration, building effective partnerships, strategic visioning, curriculum development, and cross-sector collaboration. Her professional collaborations have led her to teach in prisons and homeless shelters, to create community-engaged projects in Boston, and to publish research on cultural entrepreneurship and the creative economy. Jen's passion is to help people identify and focus personal values, creative interests, and unique gifts in order to achieve their educational, professional, and personal goals. Wendy Swart Grossman, with a background in U.S. and South African presidential campaigns, clarity, communication, and deadlines are Wendy's strength. As a creative practitioner and consultant, Wendy brings her expertise in building effective partnerships, strategic planning, board development, measurable outcomes, communication, and workshop facilitation to the table. Wendy is a connector, a political and community organizer, a logistical wizard, and a visionary advocate activist for community building and engagement. She has held positions at Harvard's Museum of Science and Culture and the Graduate School of Design, as well as the Science Museum in London, United Kingdom, and scores of NGOs, nonprofits, and social impact businesses nationally and internationally. Please join me in welcoming Jen Guillemin and Wendy Swart Grossman. So why don't we start with you, Jen? Tell us a little bit about your background, where you started, and what led you to working with this wonderful person, Wendy.
Well, thank you, Tammy, for having us, and also for dedicating your work to helping people kind of find their passion and finding purposeful paths in life. So, quick summary: I moved to Boston in the mid-'90s, and when I came to Boston, I really was like a lot of young people out of college and really didn't know what direction or what I wanted to do. And I came for some job of planning high school class reunions of all things. But at the time I was here, I ended up meeting this fascinating artist, and he went by the moniker Sidewalk Sam. And Sidewalk Sam was an entrepreneur, a visionary, a community activist, a wild, big picture thinker who lived his passion in life. And I was really inspired by him, and I did a lot of work with him in the early years, and I ended up actually marrying his son, so he became a part of my family as well. But during that time, I ended up getting a job working in higher education at an art school so I could finish my master's degree. And what ended up happening is, over the course of many years, I became deeply invested in art making in artists, and most importantly, in the direction of artists and what artists can do to kind of manage a career in the arts. And what I found from listening to artists over time is a couple of things. The first is that artists have something of extreme value to offer society, and we do not necessarily have clear economic pathways for artists. And that led to number two. I found that it was part of our responsibility in an academic institution to help maybe give them some skills to be thinking in entrepreneurial ways and to offer certain opportunities to extend their networks and resources so that they could be better prepared for a life in the arts, and one hopes for more success in the arts. So for a period of time, I started doing many things. I started an internship program. I started a summer institute. I started a program for career development for artists. Quite passionate about this work. We had a conversation and we found out we're both educators. I just taught a class for the first time and I loved doing it. And she was saying she was interested in teaching too. So I asked Wendy if she would want to collaborate on creating a course together. And we started a new course at the Boston University Arts Administration program called Cultural Entrepreneurship. And there was no other course like this. So we drew from this kind of rich background knowledge I had of working with student artists, and kind of partnered with Wendy, who'd had a real eclectic background, but really has been somebody who's just been. I think I was taking action and working very in an entrepreneurial way within an institution, and Wendy had been working outside of an institution. So I'll do the handoff, and Wendy, jump in.
So my background is I had a very mobile growing up experience, if you will. I was raised by a divorced mom and we lived lots of different places. And so being very peripatetic was actually part of my world. And I was always longing for community.
Yeah.
So then my first job out of college is I was a community organizer and a student organizer for the PIRGs, the public interest research groups.
Right, yeah.
And so I got very used to walking up to strangers and asking them for money to support causes that they really should. On my good days, it's like, here, you should be thanking me for being on your doorstep, telling you about issues that are happening in your backyard, so you can, write that check to help, to get involved in local politics. Then after working in as a community organizer and a student organizer, I then shifted into political organizing. And yes, I worked for Michael Dukakis. I worked for him for like 3-4 years organizing his gubernatorial campaign, where I was the volunteer coordinator. Then that moved into the national volunteer coordinator. At the age of, 25 years old, I was organizing congressional districts all across the country. And that was fascinating to me about why do people volunteer? What gets folks up at 5 a.m. to wave at cars and to distribute leaflets? And here again, I was working from Steubenville, Ohio, to Stevens Point, Wisconsin, to Dodge City, and working with people who had always lived in their same communities. And for me, as this peripatetic person, I was like, this is fascinating. People who've lived here for generations and generations, they know everything about their community. And it was really feeding something in me to go to these different communities. And then I was just fascinated with, why do people volunteer in the first place? So I ended up going to Tufts for a graduate school, but really looking at my area of interest was volunteerism and what gets people to volunteer. And The Habits of the Heart was the best book ever, and similar to like Bowling Alone, about what makes for a happy person. And it always comes down to community and connection to community and the people who feel they've got the most fingers out there. And that I took that very personally. So when he started, then I got married somewhere along the line and moving around to different, following a lot of I'm a .org gal, but I married a .com guy. And so we traveled around and I would remake myself when I was traveling we lived in San Francisco, we lived in Atlanta, Georgia, we lived in London, England for 6 years. And wherever I would go, I like, okay, how does this town work? I was knocking doors, like what I learned up in the PIRGs, but instead of asking for money, I was looking for friends. So I got very involved in our local community in Golders Green, as well as in the international expat community in London. And then we moved back to the US. And instead of just getting jobs in the worst economic downturn in 2009, instead of just buying another house and getting jobs back in the US, we bought a Winnebago RV, Itasca Impulse, a 29-foot RV, and we homeschooled our kids. And we used the national parks and public libraries for a year, and we lived in the Winnebago. And again, I made myself, and I blogged every day. And yes, you can buy my book on Amazon. It's called Behind the Wheel: a mother's journal of a year on the road, and it basically chronicles my downfall. I did not kill anybody in that RV, but I could have. Anyway, we got out of the RV before I killed my 13-year-old son, and we landed in Brookline. And then again, I remade myself as a consultant to nonprofit organizations, which has always been a stream of the work that I've done, from Atlanta to San Francisco to London to Boston. And at that age, you end up meeting your friends through your kids.
Right.
So that's where that then started a different trajectory, one of higher ed, and where I was I call myself as a get stuff done consultant, because I'm very much into tasks and timelines and how do we affect social change quickly. I'm also very much about, okay, where do you want to go? And we'll figure out how to get there. And so now then with thanks to my partnership with Jen, we're using the arts and creativity as our entry point to combine our skill sets to help, we're helping to bring meaning to the marketplace through arts and culture.
And that just leads me to just say that Wendy and I struck out on our own this year, because what we're finding is that the needs of the students, and quite honestly, the needs of society, are outpacing the ability of universities to change. And we see our by coming together and by creating our practice or our business, what we can do is we can help universities in helping to re-envision new ways to educate students and to see the value of kind of arts and liberal arts.
And not being afraid to open up their doors bigger and wider,
and to unlock their imagination.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. So it's not that these innovation and entrepreneurship centers that are really been opening up across the country in colleges and universities over the past 5-10 years, of which there are at least 250 now, have been based in, are nestled in the engineering and computer science and business schools. It's like, you know what, when we bring our artist students there, even though they say that they're working cross campus, cross disciplinarily, our artist students will say, oh, I didn't know I was allowed to come in here. I'm like, not only they need you and you need them.
That's what we want to change.
Yes. Yeah.
What is it that exactly that you are trying to change? Because the wheels are turning in my head, and I'm thinking about, I know some of the things that you both have been doing at Boston University, but I know in terms of, for example, working with art students and helping them to see ways to think entrepreneurially, to have those skills so that they can live as artists and also make a living. I think a lot of times, especially, if we think more traditionally, probably certain parents' worst nightmares are to hear that their kid's going to become an artist. They think they're going to starve and all this. And I know that there are some of those gaps that you're trying to help them bridge, but what is it that you're doing now with your business?
I think we're working on 3 different levels. We're working with the students themselves through our class at Boston University in Cultural Entrepreneurship, as well as offering workshops at different colleges and universities across the country, where we're working with students directly to provide the cultural entrepreneurial, tapping into their creative mindset, giving them the skills that they need to talk about their businesses, and to how to validate a business, how do you look at your financial statements, how do you know if there's actually what your product is it, and then helping them to flourish.
And just to build onto that piece for a bit too, to really help artists to unlock their imaginations, but beyond just hey, I want to get a job working for an orchestra, because those jobs might be highly competitive, but there might be other ways you can take your musical talents and apply them, or what new partnerships, what new organizations might you do. So one of the things we do is we help students to understand different ways that artists work. And so we offer opportunities for them to understand that and to also think in entrepreneurial ways about how they can generate their own opportunities. But continue. So one is on individual.
And then secondly, is working for example, one of our clients is the Boston University Build Lab, the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center. And we've been hired as their strategic consultants around their signature event called IDEA 2020. It's coming up on February 15th. It's a Saturday. And we have pulled out the whole arts and creativity piece to infuse that conference with the importance and the vitality that the artists can bring, and ensure that they're going to be folks from across campus, because so many people, even if computer scientists are actually mathematicians are some of the most creative people I know, but how do we integrate that? And then also colleges and universities hire us out of their career centers. If they don't have innovation and entrepreneurship centers, if they're not, to help them again, give some of these talents to them. So we work on individual levels. We work with educational institutions. We work with municipalities to help them think about, again, the whole idea of creative economy and creative placemaking. And then eventually we're hoping to, break the code and work with for-profit businesses, so that who will invite us in to help them talk about the importance of integration of a creative mindset in the workplace through HR departments. Because what people are really looking for, if you look at any of the studies that are coming out from PwC just did one as well, on what do Gen Zers want, and they're looking for meaning in the workplaces, and the artists and the creatives bring meaning to those workplaces.
And also, I think for businesses, we're really interested in the work of B corporations, which are businesses that, in addition to profit, which is important if you're running a business, that also are concerned about people and planet. And we think that the arts and creativity can be a strategic partner in helping to create these holistic approaches. So that's another area.
Yeah. Yes. And a beautiful story that came from that is at the Bendata Music Festival. Inés Andrade, who is from a little town in Bendata, Portugal, was getting her PhD in performance piano at Boston University. And she took our class in cultural entrepreneurship to workshop her idea for a music festival in her hometown. And it's now in its 4th year, up and running, absolutely fabulous. But she had the idea, but she didn't have the skills that she needed. So she took our class and then the following year, her partner took our class to get it done to the next level. And last summer, I was actually there in Bendata teaching workshops to her students, which was just as a teacher, that's everybody's dream, is to get to the point where your students are now your collaborators. And so
yeah. And Tammy, one thing I want to add to this too, because I think it's important, is that sometimes people get very concerned when you're talking about kind of the arts, about having it become so instrumental. It's only about making money. You're trying to fit it into this model. And I think that what Wendy and I really in our hearts believe is that we want to do things to preserve the arts. I mean, we want to find ways that the arts can flourish for the benefit of what they bring, for the intrinsic value of what they bring as well. But we also want to be realistic about what it means to do this within a capitalist model. And so how do we support artists in a way so that they can actually study what they love, while also helping to be the translators and the translators into how they might apply this in a way that can also afford them a salary of some kind. We have, we start with the premise where we want to work with our students to make like artists, care like activists, strategize like entrepreneurs, and implement like organizers. That's what we try to do to really allow our students to find success and meaning in their work.
And to realize that there's different entry points.
Yeah.
And the make and care is something that is devalued in our society. And that's where we show them that, the importance of that, and that has value in monetary ways as well.
Yeah.
And so just that whole framework that's laid out on our website, people can check it out at creativereframe.com. But another thing that we do in our class as well is just that whole, at one point we have a whole piece we do on marvelous money and talking about money. And especially in our society and here in Boston in particular, people don't like to talk about money. Don't you just kind of say, so how much money do you make? That's a really uncool question, but I love to talk about that with my students. But one of the things that we do in the class is we make a great big graph on the floor, an X and Y graph. One side is, green with a dollar sign for money, and the other axis is a red with a big heart for your mission, and your money, or mission and your passion. And we have people go, it's like, and you stand on it. What's more important to you? And we give people like little sense, okay, here you are, you're just graduating from college, blah, blah, blah. What's important to you now? How much money do you make? Say that money out, say that number out loud. Look around, who else is with you? And then we put them through like laying out their life. Okay, now you want to buy a house. Now your student loans are due. Now you have aging parents. What's important to you now? And that changes as we go through life.
Of course it does. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious. So you have this course. It's a semester long course.
It is.
So where do they go from there? I can imagine that as inspiring and as informative as that course can be, where do your students go from there? If they must need more beyond that if they're really...
Oh, of course. And there are great resources out there. And I think we see our job is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Part of what we do is to really help students to understand where they find funding, where they research what is American for the Arts, what is, assets for artists, where are these other resources that you could go to, and how do you advocate for the arts? What's mass creative, and how do you get involved with arts advocacy so we can make change at a policy level? What we are really interested in doing is just beginning to help students understand the resources that are there.
And the ecosystem's not only on campus, but off campus.
Right.
Most of our students are, in that class is a graduate school class. And so they're actually working full-time during the day and then coming to us in the evening. Although some of people do actually move to Boston just for the program, because that's fabulous. So we help them see the ecosystem on campus at BU. And so during the course of our teaching together, during that time, we were tapped to be part of the Faculty Innovation Network at BU to help with the whole launching and designing of the innovation lab at BU, the Build Lab. So we work very closely with the Build Lab now, because that's in some ways a natural step for them. There's actually different competitions that they can get involved in. And this is actually very common at most of college campuses, certainly at Tufts and MIT and Harvard, where you're pitching your idea, different money is attached to it to help you prototype it to the next stage. But then a lot of the students, though, are then going back to their own other cities, but helping them to see that, actually, if you type in entrepreneurship and fill in the blank, there are going to be lots of other places similar to Mass Challenge or the Cambridge Innovation Center in their own hometowns as well. But also, a lot of our students are working full-time jobs, and the skills that we're teaching them can be applied to their workplace right now. It's more of the intrapreneur as opposed to the entrepreneur.
Right. Got it. Wow.
And organizations like Now and There also have artist accelerators too.
Now and There,
so,
can you?
Yeah. So it's a public art. It's a public art nonprofit in Boston, bringing public art to communities, to the Boston community. And there's an artist accelerator. So what we want to do is make sure that our students are aware of these resources, so they can be active and and hit the ground running upon completion of their degrees.
And not be frightened of the different vocabulary of the business world.
Right.
I can't tell you, we also have been teaching a course for undergraduates in the College of Fine Arts called Creative Economy and Social Impact. And as it turns out, one of our students was the son of a colleague of my husband's. And so he was reporting back on the QT about what he was hearing from, and he was thrilled that his son, who was a performance artist, was able to talk about profit loss statements at the dinner table at Thanksgiving, and that it was able to the whole idea of the lean startup, and they were able to find some common ground around how to take his performing arts skills and into these more pragmatic situations. So.
And I guess also in the same way, we have worked with the Student Innovation Center, and they've been incredibly sensitive about and open to thinking about how can we design programming that will actually serve the artist population too, because they have a different set of needs. Mm-hmm. And so often it's not about scaling or trying to launch it. They just want to be able to sustain themselves financially. Mm-hmm. They're not looking to so it's a different model. It's a different way of thinking, and we've been translators from that direction too.
Wow. Well, it almost feels like if we could just clone the two of you and spread you across the land, there's a lot of people who need what you have to offer. So
that's why we decided we put together Creative Reframe to do just that.
Which is great. So you really just opened that up in the last year, it sounds like. So you're really in a process of growing and building that. And Idea 2020, that conference is coming up this winter. Is that right? Yeah. And what else? Is there more that we didn't touch on in this conversation that we want to make sure people know about?
There's always more. Oh my God. Then there's the book we're writing, which is a funny thing. It's taking longer than I thought it would. We're going to be capturing the stories of a lot of our students, and as well as profiling organizations that are up and running that are examples of what it is that we're talking about. Because it gets a little heady sometimes. It's like, who's actually doing this and making money and being sustainable? So we're going to be doing a lot of case studies on those folks and really using our framework of the Make, Care, Strategize.
That's great. So people will, when that becomes available, that will give people another resource for sort of seeing real life examples of how these things are done.
Right. What we want to do is offer these models or offer some examples of organizations that are working at that intersection of arts and business, kind of working in smart ways toward a social impact. So there's financial viability. There's the promotion of using arts and culture as a vehicle for social change.
We are. So on that beautiful note, I want to thank both of you for being here today. This is in my mind, you both represent the epitome of work from the inside out. You will have all the resources that you've mentioned, and probably even more than that, in the show notes. And I have a feeling we'll have to have you back when your book comes out. So,
that'd be wonderful. We're available.
So thank you so much.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Jen Guillemin and Wendy Swart Grossman. It was so interesting to speak with them and learn about their work to engage the higher ed community to build economic opportunity through the arts. What is your key takeaway from our interview? Is there something you'll put into action this week that you'll benefit from for years to come? Share what resonated with you in the show notes at workfromtheinsideout.com. Look for episode 056. That's also where you'll find all the links and resources from today's podcast. If you were inspired by this episode with Jen and Wendy, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss next week's show. Remember, subscribing is always free. Are you enjoying the podcast? I'd love to read your review on Apple Podcasts. It's easy to find my page at tammygoolerloeb.com/Apple. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, It's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. Let me know how it's going for you. And who knows, maybe you'll be my next interview on this podcast. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Work from the Inside Out podcast. For more information, you can find us at www.workfromtheinsideout.com.